You've probably heard it a million times. Money has to be backed by something solid, right? Like gold. But what if that's not the whole story? What if the true strength of a currency, like the US dollar, has absolutely nothing to do with a pile of metal in a vault, or even a barrel of oil? Well, we're about to pull back the curtain on the real secret of what gives money its power. For years, the usual suspects were gold. And then after the gold standard ended, the story shifted to oil. It just feels like it has to be backed by something physical you can touch. But what if both of those ideas are wrong? What if the real answer is something way more dynamic and honestly, a lot more powerful? So, to figure this all out, we're not going to Fort Knox, and we're not heading to an oil field. Instead, we're jumping in a time machine and going back almost 2,000 years to the Roman Empire. Believe it or not, the story of their money, from its incredible rise to its spectacular, fiery collapse, is basically the instruction manual for how money really works.
Okay, myths, oil, and commodities. Debunking the petrodollar. Before we get to Rome, we have to clear the air. There's this one really persistent myth that gets in the way of understanding everything else, the idea of the petrodollar. It's been floating around for about 50 years, so it's high time we took a close look at why it just doesn't add up.
So the theory goes like this. Back in 1971, the US ditched the gold standard. A lot of people thought, that's it, the dollar is going to collapse. But it didn't. So people needed an explanation, and the petrodollar theory was born. The story is that a secret deal was made to price oil in dollars, and that's what's been propping the whole thing up. It sounds plausible, right? Well, one simple chart is all it takes to see the problem. And here it is. This is where the whole petrodollar idea just falls apart. Look at the numbers. The entire global trade in oil and petroleum products makes up less than 10% of all the physical goods traded around the world. So think about it for a second. Does it really make sense that the world's most dominant currency is propped up by such a tiny sliver of the global economic pie? The math just isn't there. Okay, so if it's not gold and it's not oil, then what is it? What is the true foundation? The real backing of any major currency isn't a commodity. It's the productive power of the entire nation behind it. It's not about what a country can dig out of the ground. It's about what its people and its economy can actually create. So, a truly strong currency stands on three massive pillars. First, you've got national productivity. That's the ability to make stuff and provide services that the world actually wants. Second, you need huge consumer demand, a market so big and hungry that it acts like a vacuum, sucking in goods from everywhere. And third, you need the military power to protect the whole global system that lets that trade happen safely. Let's just focus on that second pillar for a second, consumer demand. I mean, look at this. The US isn't just the biggest consumer economy on Earth. It's bigger by a country mile. That kind of spending power creates what you could call economic gravity. If you're a company anywhere in the world and you want to sell to the biggest market, you have to trade in dollars. And that creates a constant, massive, underlying demand for the currency that makes the oil market look tiny in comparison. Now, this whole model, productivity, consumption, and military might, it might sound like a very 21st century idea, but it's not. Not at all. To see the original version in action, we turn to our case study. Let's look at the Roman money machine, because they wrote this exact playbook 2,000 years ago. Think about the city of Rome itself. It was a metropolis of over 1 million people. It was basically a giant consumer superpower. These people consumed way, way more than they could ever produce locally. This created this incredible concentrated demand for everything from all over the known world. We're talking sophisticated shops, competitive markets, even ancient food malls. And it was all powered by a dynamic, coin-based economy. And here's where it gets really interesting. Confidence in Rome's economy was so total that their money was literally worth more than the silver or gold it was made of. The brand was that strong. Archaeologists have even found imitation Roman gold coins made in India that had more gold in them than the real ones. Why would they do that? Because the stamp of Rome, the idea of Roman power, added value all on its own. And of course, that brings us to the third pillar, military might. You see this pattern throughout history. When ancient Athens beat the Persian Empire, their coin, the Athenian owl, became the go-to currency of the ancient world. Fast forward a couple of millennia, after the US emerged as the dominant military power from World War II, the dollar took on that exact same role. History is pretty clear on this. Overwhelming military strength creates the stability and confidence a global currency needs to thrive. So we've seen how it's built,
But what happens when that confidence, that belief in the system, just shatters? Well, the collapse of Roman money is a chilling cautionary tale. It's a lesson in just how fast a whole monetary system can come crashing down once people lose faith in the power that backs it up. The whole thing was triggered by a single, shocking military disaster. In 260 AD, the Roman Emperor Valerian was captured in battle by the Persians. This wasn't just a defeat. It shattered the myth of Roman invincibility. It was a signal of deep weakness. The state, desperate for cash, started to debase its coins, basically cheating, by mixing in cheap metals. In less than 9 years, the main silver coin was almost worthless. Confidence went off a cliff in what historians call a waterfall collapse. And after that, no one trusted anything but pure gold. If you want to see what this looks like for everyday people, look at Roman Britain. As the empire crumbled, the legions were pulled out. The security they provided just evaporated. The emperor essentially sent a message telling the British, hey, you're on your own now. And without the backing of Roman military and economic power, the entire concept of money just vanished. Within a single generation, coins disappeared completely. Britain went back to a barter economy that lasted for centuries. So when you pull all these different threads together, from the myth of the petrodollar all the way to the collapse of the Roman denarius, what's the big lesson for us today? It's actually pretty simple. Real, lasting currency strength isn't based on something you dig up. It comes from within. Productivity is king. What history seems to show us is that there are two main paths to a powerful currency. You can have productivity on its own. Think of modern Germany and Japan. After the war, they rebuilt themselves into economic giants purely through their industrial and creative power. But to have a true global reserve currency, the kind the whole world uses, you seem to need the second model, the one used by ancient Rome and by the modern US. That's immense productivity plus global military reach. And that brings us to the final and most important question. If a currency is really just a mirror reflecting a nation's overall productivity and power, then the real story we should be watching isn't the price of gold or the price of oil. It's the shifting balance of global power itself. The future of money isn't hidden in a vault somewhere. It's being forged right now, in the factories, the laboratories, and the strategic decisions that are going to define who holds power in this century.